a lot of these people are going to get other than their Social Security. And as a trustee, I feel I have to have their interest at heart there.
Sure. Well, do we have a ballpark figure, a general figure of what the county's contribution would be? If we had to put a number in the budget for next year, what number would we put in?
Well, it wouldn't be next year. You see, that's the other benefit. If you make the effective date January 2nd or later, you have a year to work out the budgeting issues, because the liability won't hit
until the
following year. So you have a year to kind of refine our investment strategy, as well as look at, we'd even talked about, some other ways. Norm Pickering is, as the state has actually spread out their liability over 30 years, and which means that our appropriation would be reduced accordingly. The state just literally changed that last week. So they're funding their liability over a longer period of time, which to me, again, intuitively makes sense. I mean, these benefits, you got to be here a while before you get this benefit.
Right.
But the simple way to answer the question is the benefits for an employee who would be eligible would go up by 50%. So the funding for those benefits over time would increase at least proportionately. And there's some employees that, I mean, they're going to be jumping even some of the employees that started way back in the 70s, they started at even lower class basis.
I think it was originally 1/120. If I remember right.
Yeah. Most of them, yeah.
1/120 was the original class basis, so it was well established.
But the other thing too is, I mean, if you look at the state plan, some state employees are eligible to retire at age 50, of all things. So we're not doing. I mean, we're really kind of.
Right.
Jack, are you saying that you could spread this out over a period of years then? Any liability is spread out at a minimum over 8 years. So if you take on a new liability, the minimum, it's going to be spread over 8 years and amortized. The state is now amortizing their liability, what I believe is a more representative manner, over 30 years.
Except for the schools, the Pennsylvania school retirement.
Well, it'd be schools, teachers, right, but I think that also applies to their, I believe that also applies to the state employees, state police.
It's like refinancing your mortgage from a 15 to a 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's, but I mean, there's a cost to anything. If if you give this benefit, or don't give this, and you give somebody some kind of health benefit, there's a cost to that. And if you give a post-retirement health benefit, at least there's no way you can come up with a number for that.
Right.
There's no way. At least we can say that it's going to be a 50% increase in employees' pension should they reach retirement age. So any 50% increase results in a funding increase of at least that much. But if you say you're going to give an employee post-retirement medical benefits, there is no way you can estimate what that cost is going to be.
What they're going up each year.
Yeah, just take what it costs today. If it's $1,000 a month to provide that benefit, add 10% to it every year, and that means it under that, whatever it is, what is it, the rule of 70, doubles every 7 years.
10%.
At 10%.
Which we only got 10% raises on
Yeah.
insurance. The other thing is, if the board at some time next year does it, employees that would normally not retire, there's at least a 7 to 9% savings on salary with just their longevity. Because replace them, an employee that would have to be eligible to retire would be at least a 7% higher salary on longevity alone.
That's
So
true.
that's part of the analysis.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah. Yeah. So you'd have
How are you going to have all these numbers for us, Bill?
Christmas Eve.
I thought, I'll tell you what, we're hearing all these savings, and you're going to have them. Well, I got to have some good numbers,
Right.
and I'm not getting them.
Well, they just passed. I mean, I think it's, the fact that the governor just signed it gave us the opportunity to take a look at it.
Jack, do you have any back of the envelope calculation?
I don't want to do that.
but I can tell you that our appropriation for 2004, I can say with, I believe, some degree of accuracy, it's going to be substantially less than was originally budgeted. Just a back of an envelope calculation. I'm looking at what I pretty much know what the market, unless there's something bad happens here in the next week, which I don't think is going to happen, we're going to end up with, you know, we're going to probably have close to 70, maybe even in excess of $70 million in market value. So we've quickly closed that gap.
He did his estimate when, in September, maybe? When did we get the,
Like the first week or so in October?
We got the estimate for next year.
So, I mean, Norm typically gives a conservative estimate. That figure is going to be substantially lower, which would also help to offset this. That combined with the fact that if there is a budgetary squeeze, we can quite properly, as a board and as commissioners, reduce the amount of interest that's being credited to the account. You're going to save some money there. But for me to give you, it's basically, you're going to fund the liability, and the liability for is going to increase by at least 50%. So that liability goes up. At a minimum, that increase in the liability, whether it's $5 million or $10 million or $20 million, and I don't think it's going to be $20 million, is spread over a minimum of 8 years. I think it's likelier that we could probably spread it over, assuming you know, we're able to take advantage of the same thing the state has taken and spread it over a longer period of time. So therefore, if you're asking me for a back, I'm not an actuary, I'm not going to sit here and give a number, but I can tell you it's going to be, it's doable. It's just how you want to particularly massage or construct the funding mechanism.
What is our window of opportunity here?
It's 12 months. But I'm
Well, it's less than 12 months.
yeah, it's whenever,
Next November.
yeah.
So it would be, we're down to, we're approaching about 11 months now.
And I'd like to try. I would be proactive sooner rather than later.
Well, I was going to ask.
That's my gut reaction as to the trustees, to the retired, and to the employees.
Is there a benefit one way or the other to act sooner rather than later?
I think
outside of just the benefit of.
I don't know. Personally, I would think that it would say a statement to all the employees that we have your best interests at heart. You know, we are trying to do our best for you, for your post-retirement years. To me, that's the intrinsic message. You know, you can't touch it, see it, feel it, taste it, but there's a sentiment there that we're looking out for your best interest. And the governor has given us this doorway, and we're going to walk through it for you.
And the fact that we would have, if you make the effective date after January 1st, okay, make it, for instance, January 2nd. I know, for instance, I use that date because, for one thing, it's fairly soon, but also we have a number of employees that are retiring on that date, not just one or, we have at least two.
Two of them.
At least two. If you make that date, then the liability, according to Mr. Pickering, doesn't hit for another year. So we have a year to figure out, you know, work on the budgeting issues and look at the funding issues. We even talked about pension obligation bonds, some other
folks are going to perform, which I feel very good about what we've done with Yanni this last week and a half. I feel very good about all that. No, I think goodwill, I think, is the word I'm seeking with the employees of the county.
Is it my understanding Commissioner Anderson's, I know he couldn't be here.
He supports the program.
Does he support it in, you know, with at the 140th level, and does he support with the, at the, and